course of this trial, you will go inside the Baltimore Police Department, inside the Operations Division, and into special elite units, including one called the Gun Trace Task Force, where detectives and other senior officers operate, including these men, Defendant Daniel Herschel and Defendant Marcus Taylor. And the evidence will show that these men engaged in racketeering, specifically that they committed robberies and extortions and overtime fraud. They stole money from people that they stopped and detained. They stole money from houses that they had gone in to search. And they stole money from taxpayers when they claimed overtime they did not work. They did this on all these occasions that you will learn about. And to be clear, if they had done it once, we would be in this courtroom trying this case. Once would be one time too many. But they did it again and again and again. And what this shows is a pattern of criminal conduct, a pattern of racketeering activity, as Her Honor has referred to, over a number of years. And a police officer who has served a long career doesn't get to rob people a couple of times in that long career. And a police officer who hasn't served for a long time doesn't get to rob people because it's what everyone around him is doing. What these defendants did at its base was to abuse the trust placed in them as police officers, as senior officers assigned to elite units, to enrich themselves. In the course of this trial, you will learn about the criminal conduct of these men, and that's what this case is about. Criminal conduct. This isn't a case about police tactics or aggressive policing. It's a case about greed. This case isn't an indictment on all police officers. The indictment in this case was brought against these two officers and their co-defendants for criminal conduct that isn't subject to debate. Regardless of one's views on crime, the role of the police in our community, the appropriateness of various police tactics, the law is clear. The police can't commit robbery and extortion and fraud. My name is Leo Wise. I'm an Assistant United States Attorney, and along with Assistant United States Attorney Derek Hines, we represent the United States. With us in this courtroom is Special Agent Erica Jensen and Task Force Officer John Siraki of the Baltimore Police Department. On behalf of the United States, I want to thank you for your service and for your time over the next several weeks. This morning, I would like to talk to you about three things. First, I would like to give you an overview of the criminal conduct the evidence will show these two defendants engaged in. Second, I want to summarize the specific charges in this case. And third, I want to talk to you about some of the evidence and witnesses you will see and hear. Now, the defendant, Daniel Herschel, joined the BPD in 1999. He became a detective and joined the Gun Trace Task Force in early 2016. When Herschel joined the Gun Trace Task Force, former detectives Mamadou Gando and Jamel Rayam were already assigned to the unit. Gando and Rayam were also charged in this case and have pled guilty. Gando and Rayam admitted that they committed robberies and overtime fraud. Gando and Rayam will testify in this case from that witness stand about the crimes they committed with these defendants. Defendant Marcus Taylor joined the Baltimore Police Department in May of 2009. He also became a detective and joined at first what was called a Special Enforcement Section unit. The other members of that unit included Maurice Ward and Evodio Hendricks and Wayne Jenkins. Taylor, Ward, Hendricks, and Jenkins then moved from that SES unit to the Gun Trace Task Force in June of 2016. Both Ward and Hendricks were charged in this case and have pled guilty, admitting to committing robberies and overtime fraud. Both Ward and Hendricks will testify from this witness stand in this case about the crimes they committed with these defendants. Ward, in fact, will be the first witness called to testify. So in the course of this case, you will hear not from one, not two, not three, but 4 former Baltimore Police Department officers who committed crimes with these men. When they were assigned together, these 6 officers and others, in June of 2016, ladies and gentlemen, the Gun Trace Task Force was a perfect storm of officers who took advantage of their positions to enrich themselves. They did it on the street when they robbed and extorted people, and they did it when they sat at a desk in the Baltimore Police Department and defrauded the taxpayers of Maryland by claiming to work overtime they did not work. The Gun Trace Task Force wasn't a unit that went rogue. It was a unit made up of detectives that had already gone rogue, men that had crossed over from the other side of those who uphold the law to the side of those who break it. Both before they joined together in the GTTF and after, the defendants and their co-defendants stole money when they could, sometimes sharing it among themselves, and sometimes keeping it for themselves. And they did it on multiple occasions, as you will hear about. Sometimes they took hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands. On one occasion, hundreds of thousands. But when they worked together, they were able to accomplish two of the biggest robberies and extortions that any of them had ever participated in. In March of 2016, Taylor, Hendricks, Ward, and Jenkins, who was their sergeant at the time, stole more than $200,000 in drugs from a man named Stevenson in Baltimore City. And in July of 2016, Herschel, Gondo, Rayam, and Jenkins, now their sergeant at the GTTF, stole $20,000 from a man who lived in Carroll County, in Westminster, named Ronald Hamilton. And you will hear from Hendricks and Ward and Gondo and Rayam, the officers and co-defendants of Herschel and Taylor, who participated in both these large-scale robberies and extortions. Former detectives Hendrick and Ward will tell you how they and Taylor and Jenkins robbed Stevenson in March of 2016. This robbery occurred before they joined the Gun Trace Task Force, when they were together in this special enforcement section. Ward and Hendricks will tell you how they went into Stevenson's basement and discovered a safe and guns and kilograms of cocaine. And they got a search warrant and cracked open the safe and found hundreds of thousands of dollars. Their sergeant, Wayne Jenkins, took most of the money out of the safe, but left some behind. And Ward and Hendricks will testify that they closed the safe back up and then made a phony video of them opening it a second time, pretending it was the first time, to cover their tracks. Taylor helped crack the safe, and he participated in making the cover-up video. And that night, in the middle of the night, they all went back to Taylor's house. And in Taylor's basement, Jenkins gave Ward and Hendricks and Taylor at least $20,000 each. Ward will admit that. Hendricks will admit that. And both of them will testify they saw Jenkins give Taylor at least $20,000. Now, former detectives Gondo and Rayam will tell you how they and Herschel and Jenkins robbed Ronald Hamilton in July of 2016. Ronald Hamilton and his wife were shopping for blinds at Home Depot for their new home in Westminster when Gondo and Rayam and Herschel showed up and started following them. Rayam had written a bogus search warrant, and he'll tell you about that, based on the suspicion, but just the suspicion, that Ronald Hamilton was selling drugs. Ronald Hamilton will testify, and he will tell you that he had sold drugs in the past and had gone to jail for it. But he will testify that when he came out, he stopped, and he made his living buying and selling cars, a cash business, running an assisted living facility with his wife, and gambling almost every day at the Maryland Live Casino. That's what he'll tell you. And by July 8th of 2016, Ronald Hamilton had about $70,000 in cash in his home in Westminster. Herschel and Gondo and Rayam arrested Ronald Hamilton and his wife after they left the Home Depot as they were going to pick up their dry cleaning. They didn't have any drugs on them. They didn't have any guns or anything else. All Ronald Hamilton had was some money which Rayam stole. But then Herschel and Gondo and Rayam took them in handcuffs to a Baltimore Police Department satellite office, referred to as the Barn, to interrogate them. And there they were, interrogated about whether they had any guns or drugs or large amounts of money at their home in Westminster. And Ronald Hamilton told these officers that he didn't have any guns or drugs, but that he did have money. And so Herschel and Gondo and Rayam, and now Jenkins too, their sergeant, took the Hamiltons in handcuffs back to their house in Westminster. And when they got there, Herschel and Gondo and Rayam found a heat-sealed bag of money and beside it thousands of dollars of loose cash. And Rayam will tell you that he went to Sergeant Jenkins, and Jenkins told him to take it. And before they left, Rayam told Herschel he had taken it. And after they took the loose cash, they called the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, there in Westminster, who came out and recovered the heat-sealed bag with the remaining money. And after they finished robbing Ronald Hamilton, Herschel and Jenkins and Gondo and Rayam went out to dinner and then to a bar where they split the money. And then, cash in hand, they all went to the casinos. Herschel and Jenkins to the Horseshoe Casino here in Baltimore, and Gondo and Rayam to Maryland Live in Anne Arundel County. Now, while all 6 defendants ultimately came together on the GTTF, as I said, the evidence will show that these men and their co-defendants robbed and extorted civilians before they joined the GTTF. And you will hear testimony about those robberies and extortions.